As the mayor of the town of Clayton, I'd like to call this special town council meeting to order. The first item on our agenda, the only item on our agenda is the Park and Recreations bond. And I will turn it over to our interim town manager, Rich Capola.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. So we called this special meeting because one of the big drivers for keeping the parks bond projects on track was to be able to get a bond sale through the LGC in the month of November. The LGC is not doing a bond sale in December, so effectively, if we do not make some decisions today, we cannot move forward until after January. Problem being, once we've got the bids in hands and some of the numbers locked in, contractors are going to only hold those prices for a certain period of time. So our intent today is to kind of work through Municipal Park. I'll get to East Clayton in a second, but be able to work through that. That was a design build project as it was bid out. We do now have a GMP, or guaranteed maximum price, negotiated to be able to deliver the entirety of the project. And I'll let staff talk a little bit more about that here shortly. But effectively, coming out of today, we really like guidance as to finalizing that contract in terms of the total scope so that we can move forward with the award and effectively provide that documentation to the LGC so that the bonds can be sold later this month. One update with regard to East Clayton Park. Our intent of picking today, the 10th, was because we had a bid opening that was scheduled for the 8th. The hope there, that was a design bid build, so that would have been a hard bid project. Design bid build, sorry. That would have been a hard bid project that we expected to receive on Monday. Unfortunately, we only had 2 bidders show up to the opening. As per the statute, we're required to have a minimum of 3. If we do not have 3, we are allowed to re-advertise, and if on the second advertisement we still have less than 3, we can then open bids. So at this point, through some great efforts on Robert Mackay's side to be able to talk to the LGC regarding at least the estimates that we currently have for that park, if we are able to get through today and with some action on the GMP, they will allow us to still sell those bonds later this month based on the estimates. The intent will be to get the final bids for that park in on the 30th. With a quick turnaround to be basically the last item of old business on the December 6th meeting for this council to act on. I guess before I ask staff to step up and kind of work through the presentation on Municipal Park, is there any questions at this point?
We're good.
All right. I think with that, I'm going to kick it to Joshua Baird, our engineering director. He's got a presentation as well as there should be several documents in front of you regarding the GMP. I'll let you go from there.
Yep. Thank you, Town Manager. Again, Joshua Baird, Engineering Director. Documents before you. I want to just quickly run through what you should have before you. Should have a total of 5 documents. Some are similar to what was provided previously. So the first is a basically breakdown spreadsheet with Balfour Beatty's name up top in terms of a GMP. There's a base and then alternate pricing involved with that. Also in your packet, you should have a site plan for East Clayton Community Park. We're not going to talk too much about that necessarily today, but we can certainly answer some questions, but did want to provide you a copy of the current site plan so you're aware of what is out to bid, what is included in those improvements, and if there's any discussion points in terms of East Clayton, we're happy to answer those today as well. Also in the documents, you should have a site plan for Municipal Park that includes a color code of what those different alternates. So this coincides with the spreadsheet of each of the alternates. And then finally, you should have another exhibit that shows the landscaping plan for Municipal Park. And you'll see that there are certain landscaping that is called out and highlighted in red, and we'll speak specifically to that later in the presentation. So also, as part of this presentation is also going to be Shannon Poole, Construction Project Administrator within engineering, who's going to be working through this project and managing the field work, field inspections, and being involved in both the Municipal as well as East Clayton. Also here today is Scott Garner. He's with Balfour Beatty Construction. They are the lead, the design build team. He's the lead with the design build team. And obviously, Scott Garner, Parks and Rec Director, is here as well to help answer any questions as we work through presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn it actually to Shannon Poole and allow her to work through presentation and work through the different alternates in terms of what is included in the documents before you. Shannon?
At that. members of the council. Thank you for having this special session today for us to talk through some of these elements of Municipal Park. As Joshua said, I've been in the engineering department since early September, so I am coming up to speed a little bit on the aspects of this project. So the information I'm going to give you is a high level, so I'll count on my team to plug in any questions you may have, or details or technical questions, stuff like that. What Joshua had told you, you have the site plan for Municipal Park. I don't think any of you have seen it since I think the concept came and was approved, so you'll be able to review that. The color codes represent the alternatives that we will go through in detail a little bit. These are the items that we've already procured. A lot of the playground equipment and the splash pad. Okay, so alternate one will really just be an overlay of the existing parking lot. It's going to just rehabilitate it. Alternate one adds additional cost.
Is this a paved parking lot?
So
Is it paved? Or is it dirt or paved?
it is currently paved, so it would just be rehabilitating it overlay. Yes, sir.
That's the one that's right across from
To
17.
that, so
I didn't know if there was going to be service.
in the spreadsheet and in the GMP proposal, there is an actual base bid. If you'll notice, in terms of columns, you've got a total budget, a design and pre-construction, a base bid, and then we start to get into the different alternatives. So this is that spreadsheet that has the Balfour up top. As you can see, we've got some design and pre-construction. That's at phase one services in terms of the design of the park, the permitting, and all of the survey that goes along with that. The base bid is items and elements and improvements that are not highlighted. So such as this here, resurfacing the parking lot and overlay, that is getting outside of the existing base bid in terms of what the improvements are, just really adding that programming. A couple meetings ago, Town Council voted to go ahead and procure those elements such as the splash pad, the playground that Shannon showed the pictures of. And so as we start to get into these alternates, these are things that we as staff are recommending to council to at least consider adding into that. You've got a base bid that really gets you the programming, but we believe there's alternates that really add more to the park. And so, you know, you have a preliminary number. If you look in just the base bid is that 4.899. That's really just getting you towards those programming elements. But there's things that we as staff and working with Parks and Rec in terms of we believe add a lot of function to the park, a lot of amenities in addition to just adding that programming. So that is what we're going to work through here. And the first one, as Shannon alluded to, was just taking the existing, this is the existing parking area and overlaying it and doing it up with new striping and everything versus just using the existing parking lot. I mean, that could be an option. We're going to get the same programming. We're going to get the splash pad, but it's just, do we want to use the existing parking lot or do we want to go ahead and redo that parking lot while we've got a contractor on board and while we've got some economy of scale in that? So, yes, sir.
If we approve the 6484, when would we have to spend more money on this park?
Fully caught the whole question. If we spend the,
If we approve the 6484, $6,484,000, when would we have to spend any more money on that park?
I mean, in terms of the parking lot, we believe we can get a lot of life out of the parking lot by just overlaying it. And in terms of additional elements, they may need to be added. If you want to speak to that now, Scott, or if we want to get through, or if you want.
I just feel like I'm probably best equipped to answer your question, Councilman Holder. The elements of the park that really kind of have a lifespan are the playground and some of the splash pad. All right, so, but you can anticipate between a 20 and a 25-year life out of those elements before they've really been broken down by UV or expired. In the case of the existing playground, this has been demoed at Municipal Park, it was no longer compliant with current standards. So you can estimate that between a 20 and 25-year life out of those elements with reasonable maintenance. Whereas elements like the shelter, particularly since we're building with standing seam metal roofs, that's a 50-year product. Those elements, and we're building in a classic style, we're using masonry for the rest of the building. Those buildings are going to outlast.
So if we only approve the 4899, then somewhere in the next 4 to 5 years, we'll be coming back to these other items. Good.
So let me add to that. I just want to be clear. If we do the 6484, does that also include the alternates, or would the alternates be in addition to that?
The 6.484, that is the total package. So that would include what we've already committed to in terms of design money, as well as the early procured items. And so the 6.4 is the total of all the alternates. If you want to just look at the base bid, just the minimum, it would be the 4.899. So you add in the parking, the other items we're going to go through, that is adding up to the total of the 6.484.
And do you anticipate any issues with that parking lot? I'm under the impression that there may be no stone underneath the current asphalt, so you may have to essentially start over.
So this being a design build project, there's some flexibility in terms of there's time benefits in terms of getting things moving, get a GMP in place while we're finalizing some of the design and everything. We just received the geotech report back because we did do some due diligence, and we are evaluating if this is the best approach in terms of just overlaying it, how much life, what can expectancy can we get out of the parking lot. So at a minimum, we do anticipate, if we commit to this, doing something with the parking lot, but that is still a question that we are looking to finalize the answer. And some discussion in terms of, is that the best approach in terms of, do we just need to cut out certain areas and then repave over it, or do we need to do a holistic look at it? But we believe that we will have more information in terms of the best approach once we really dive into the full geotech report that we've got on that.
So in relation to what Councilman Holder asked, it sounds to me, unless I'm misunderstanding you, that parking lot could cost more than what we have anticipated today, which means the 6.484 would go up. Is that correct?
We are also carrying some GMP, or excuse me, some contingency in the GMP. There's one of the things that we're looking at is if we need to go in and completely rehab that, we think there may be some opportunities to actually take advantage of stormwater treatment within that. And so there would be savings in terms of reducing the SCM, the stormwater control measure that's on site. And if we are able to do that, if we got to completely blow open the parking lot, we feel like it may be a wash in terms of just moving some of the stormwater, reducing stormwater costs. We actually could put it into the parking lot and it could become a wash. But there is that risk, but we are carrying 5% contingency in the total GMP.
So the answer to Councilman Holder's question is it could go higher than what we see today. Is that correct?
I mean, there's always a chance that something will come out there, but this is a guarantee.
Yes or no? That's a yes or no. In my book, that's a yes or no question.
I feel relatively confident that we can keep it at this number.
And that would be all inclusive.
So,
Thank you.
so just to clarify a little bit on that, if you look under the line that says subtotal A, you can see where it says construction contingency. Typically in these design build type of projects, because we're at, call it 90% design, and that all that is not, the bolts are, the nuts are on the bolts, but it's not tightened down all the way. As that progresses forward, there is approximately $250,000 already built into that 6.48 number that will allow for any fluctuation. To Joshua's point, though, if we are able to, I won't say steal from Peter to pay Paul, but if we are able to put dollars, we were going to dig a hole and put them into the parking lot and save those dollars, we feel very confident that we will still be able to deliver the entire project within that 6.48 number.
Thank you.
Mayor, it's okay if I ask. So I will say this, I know that cost is a very important thing, but I just want to kind of say I appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing. I think we are on the right path, and I think Clayton residents appreciate what you guys are doing every single day for us. Thank you so much, Shannon, for coming out and helping our advisory board get this on track. Thank you so much, you guys.
Appreciate that. And if we can, we'll walk on, Mayor, if it's okay, we'll walk on through the rest of the alternates here. And I'll pass it back to Shannon, but I do, if I could just jump back real quick, I just want to highlight too, you know, what is really included in that base, and then I'll let Shannon talk through the alternates, but there's also elements in here and the improvements I'll try to point out are the band shell, the event lawn, the circular walking trail around that event lawn space that really adds a lot of functioning for the town, the splash pad, additional playground. There is obviously restrooms that have to be accompanied with the splash pad. There is, let's say, the additional playground, and then there is one large shelter, and then some of the other shelters are getting into alternates. Also included in the base, and speak more to it in a little bit, are 2 basketball courts included in the base. So we got some options and alternatives in terms of those later, but those elements, that is in that base bid. That's getting the programming added to. Did I miss something? Oh, adding the programming to the site. But again, we feel like there's some amenities and additional stuff here that we'd like to present and recommend to council to take a look at. And with that, I'm gonna pass it back to Shannon, let her continue to walk through what the specific alternates are, where they're on the site, and then just really what that total number for an alternate is and what it adds to that base budget in terms of what that dollar amount is for that specific alternate.
Thank you. He was a lot more thorough than I was. I appreciate you. Yay. So we went through alternate number 1. Alternate number 2 will add additional parking along McCullers. It'll add, let's see, about 18 parking spaces along McCullers, and it will add about 30 parking spaces along Kilgo. And that includes curb and gutter.
What's that amount there? 4. What's the total there?
49.
Yep, we're not, just.
So alternate number 3 would be adding an additional small shelter. There's actually 2, they're the same price. Ideally, it would be the one in the bottom left corner that would go last, because we could add it later.
Yeah, so,
Isn't that right?
Yeah, so what we discussed just in terms of this is something that the council doesn't necessarily want to proceed with right now. The one to the plan south there is kind of up against some parking. It is something that could be added later. One thing to know, in the base bid, we are planning to at least pour the pads and have these things ready to go in the event one day. If it's not now, it is something that could become on, just bolt on shelters back in these places. But certainly there's a lot of benefit to doing it now. But again, it's something else that is just above and beyond that kind of base programming that we want to put before you as council as options today. So 3 and 4, and I think the total, each of those is just shy of 100,000. So just under 200,000 for that alternate.
Total price. Is that in that $6 million?
Yes.
Okay, and then we've got alternate number 5, which is replacing one of the basketball courts with a futsal court. They'll still be able to allow to play basketball, but it's Scott, do you want to speak to what futsal is?
So a futsal sport is actually not just a one-dimensional, one-sport court. Futsal is a variation of soccer. It's typically an indoor game, but this is a way to take that indoor game outside. It's actually a multi-sport court. It would still have basketball goals on it, so it's not a net deduct of one basketball court, replace it with a football court, it's the additional football court to an existing basketball court. So you can kind of get two for one. Futsal, like I said, is one of the fastest growing sectors in the sport of soccer. It's being played by a lot of children in our community. Mark's organization actually has a futsal specific league with over 200 kids playing in it as we speak. And that's without designated or specifically designed places to play the sport. So if you could imagine what it's like to have a basketball league, if you've got no basketball courts, well, you know, we can't have a futsal league without futsal courts. So it is, it's something where the demand predates us recommending having one in this sport.
Rent cost is $81,000.
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask a question? With respect to the futsal court, based on what you just shared, would it be reasonable to expect that the vast majority of time would be consumed by that sport and have very limited access with respect to basketball or anything else?
Yeah, that'd be really hard for me to guess, to be honest with you. I think that it would probably be, actively used by youth playing futsal, in the after-school hours. But I can tell you the single basketball court out there that we have today, until we demoed it last week, was heavily used during the day. So I would expect that it'll be a lot of complementary use where you'd have lots of basketball being played on it at parts of the day and football being played on it at other parts of the day. So I don't think that we would have one group displacing the other. And I think the beauty of it is we have one basketball court out there today, and we added another basketball court plus another with futsal. But I don't think it'll be, I think it'll still be an add to both communities.
Quick question. How many basketball courts do we have at the moment?
We have two outdoor basketball courts. We have one today. We have one at All-Star Park, and we had one at Municipal Park.
Okay. Are we trying to build any more basketball courts, or are we just focusing on?
Absolutely. So we have a growing partnership with Clayton Middle School, and a grant that we've received on almost 18 months ago, pre-COVID. And so when we execute an agreement with the middle school, which hopefully will be in the next 60 to 90 days, part of that will be using county dollars to add a basketball court to that site at no cost to the town is where we believe that'll shake out. And that's a grant that y'all approved. It's nothing I just pulled out of my pocket. Yeah, there is more demand than there is space for basketball and tennis and soccer. And so, yes, the places that they make the most sense, Clayton Middle is a really good location. And outdoors at the community park our community center would be a really good location as well.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Scott. And then the final alternate, number 6, is enhanced landscaping versus just what we have in the base bid, which is our code landscape. And that adds $38,000. A little bit more detail. That's one of your sheets is a detailed landscape plan with those enhancements.
So with that, so our town UC code obviously requires a certain amount of landscaping in terms of screening and how much is actually on the site. We feel that in creating just a destination and a park here, there's certainly some benefit if there's some additional landscaping to spruce up the area. And so this here alternate is just additional landscaping that goes above and beyond what town code would require. Certainly something that we believe adds value to the park. It's something nice to spruce it up, but it is not something that we necessarily have to do to still get the programming. Again, we could get our approvals from town planning entitlement, but it is something we believe really adds to the park, and would recommend it from just a making and sprucing up the park standpoint, the value of the park itself. There is additional operation, or there's maintenance costs with that too. So there's that to keep in mind as well. As the more we add, in terms of Scott's budget, the more trimming and shrub hedging, more to maintain, but just trying to provide the whole picture here. So I think that was the last alternate, Shannon. You know, really before you've got some options, and that's one of the things that it's been great working with Scott Garner in terms of Balfour and trying to work to, you know, we've got some flexibility here. We have a base that we feel like gets us the programming, but then we also have some options that we as owner and town council can work through and decide if it's worth the additional value to go above and beyond that, just from a financial standpoint, what it adds to the park, and give some flexibility in the discussion here. Before I jump to just any other questions or add-ins, another document that before you was the amendment. If I could just speak to that real quick, and then we'll just take some final questions. This here would be Amendment 2. Amendment 1 was approved 2 meetings ago, I believe, in terms of it was the early demo and the procurement to go ahead, just to meet our timelines, to go ahead and procure the splash pad, to get those lead times, get those things on order, and the playground equipment. So this would be Amendment 2. Really, this is just formalizing whatever we come to. The number is plugged in here in terms of the total project, but that is subject. We can change that. So this would be actually formalizing from what we had, and in the original agreement, it just says a preliminary of $4 million. This would actually be formalizing the number, the guaranteed maximum price. Is also stating and formalizing the contract completion timelines in terms of the construction aspect. Defining any shared savings, that 5% contingency that is included in the GMP. If that is not utilized, if there's not a need for that, working with Balfour, they're willing to not invoice the town for any of that, and the town retains all of that contingency and will not be billed for. And then the others is just finalizing and formalizing warranty periods, and then incorporating an actual scope. So we'll further define upon direction today, we'll further define what that scope is, and that will be incorporated so we know exactly what is in that GMP. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over. Anything else from Scott Barnard or Scott Garner in terms of anything we may have left out, and then we could take any questions on any of the alternates or any of the base. Anything else you guys wanna add?
One thing I want to just jump in real quick, Josh, where you'll notice on that amendment, so if we were to approve, if you were to approve all the alternates, it still has substantial completion of the park by July, so basically midsummer, and final completion by August of 2022. So we'll have a splash pad by before the weather turns.
Anything else to add?
You know, nope, that's not what I wanted to do. How do I advance? All right, so, yeah, I guess I'm the closer, if you will, but, you know, council members and mayor, these are the folks, the photos we showed you guys a couple weeks back. This is the splash pad that we're really modeling after, that's already in use in Stokes County in Moxville. This is a mock-up of that splash pad prior to it going into service. And, you know, these are examples of the exact play structure that we would be constructing and some of the other elements in the case of the swings. You know, I guess I'm really proud to say this is not a park that y'all didn't hire Scott to come here and come up with a really cool park. We listened to the public. We began with public input prior to us going forward with the bond referendum. We talked a lot about where things were going to be spatially located at this park. And when you look at those very first drawings and compare them to the finished product that we're hoping to deliver to y'all, it's amazing how much is still identical to what was said day one. You know, we did a whole lot more listening than we did talking. And, you know, really what we're prepared to deliver to y'all is a park that our town has designed. Our town, whether it be stakeholder groups and members of the advisory board, or just citizens coming out and participating in those public planning processes along the way. I did some quick math. Now, again, I'm your Parks and Rec director. You really need to lean on the engineers better for math, but all the alternates account for about 17% of the total budget. And I would say that we're getting more than 17% in value by completing this park rather than kicking that down the road. Councilman Holder, yes, sir.
This play thing is showing, looks to me like it has a lot of ways for kids to get hung on it. Are we gonna have staff out there watching that?
On the playground, neither the playground nor the splash pad require supervision. The nice thing about a splash pad, by code and by practice, is not a facility that requires either an attendant or a lifeguard. It's zero entry. And the depths never exceed, quarter to a half an inch of water.
Well, I'm more concerned about this when you show it on the screen right now.
Okay, that play structure?
A lot of roads the kids could.
It's amazing how much science, engineering, and attorneys are involved in the design of play structures, and I can assure you that meets every standard and code of what is called the Playground Safety Code, or say our safety protocols. We have multiple CPSIs, which are Certified Playground Inspectors, on staff. They'll be routinely inspecting this playground, as we do with every playground in service. And, these playgrounds, incidents of injury on this style versus any other style, are nearly identical. So no play structure is injury-proof, but we're not putting forward a catapult. We're putting forward an engineered design play structure that is built and installed by professionals and will meet all the standards and codes.
And I think that the cost of that reflects all of that went into it to meet all the safety codes for kids to be able to play. There is no doubt we could not build our own structure exactly like that with some ropes, but we may not have all the science behind our final product like what's been installed in this kind of product.
I wouldn't propose.
It's involved
that we build our own.
No, I don't propose we build our own either. I'm not going to play on that if we do.
Now, the dangerous ones were the aluminum slides from the 80s.
Scott, I want to thank you and Josh, the whole team. Y'all really knocked this out of the park. I've seen the preliminaries over the past few weeks. And if you think about it, this park is Clayton's first park. Am I right about that? I think it was built in the 70s. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's never really had a facelift since the 70s.
True.
You agree with that?
That's true.
So, I mean, this park is kind of near and dear to the heart of Clayton. And it means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to these guys who grew up here in Clayton. So I'm all for anything that we can do to improve this park. It's been long overdue. All the alternates, I love it. More parking, the better. Splash pads, great, band shell. And if nobody else has any questions, I'll make a motion to approve the $6 million and the amendment. I'll put that on the floor right now in case these other guys got anything else to say. But thank you guys for what you've done. Bang up job.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to invest the GPM of $6.484,367 in the agreement, in addition to, well, that is the whole package. So
Kit and caboodle.
that's the whole kit and caboodle. So a motion to approve and accept and execute that.
Mayor, can that motion include, subject to legal review? There are a couple of little tweaks to this agreement that need to be made.
Yes. Is that good with you, Mr. Bunn?
Yeah.
Subject to legal review, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Mr. Granis?
I too want to acknowledge the staff and especially the Park and Recreation Committee. This has been a long time in coming, and it's real exciting. Bobby, I think hit the nail on the head. This is the oldest park, and that park is tired, and it's time to completely, renovate it. So I'm excited about this. The only thing I'm not overly excited about is the futsal. I would prefer to see two basketball courts, but that's not new to anybody on this council. I've said that, I think, from the get-go, and I've said that, Scott. That's not to say that that's not something that's needed, but I also know we have some other projects that could truly lend itself to futsal, but I'm not going to not vote on this, so.
Cool. share that concern. But then I also thought about, I guess, of the most economical ways to provide extra. The basketball court would be one that should easily fit into any budget when we get to that point. And to see that we have so much, the way the space has been redesigned, that we've got space to do fill in and add-ons with, I'm very excited about that. But I too am appreciative to everybody's good work and the good work of this town council that has completely supported this park and recreation bond and what the taxpayer and the citizens are getting for this bond that they voted for. I am especially thankful for the alternative for landscaping, because all too often we hear everywhere that all you guys make them do is what's the minimum required. And sometimes, rarely, we have developers who are going above and beyond. And I feel like we as the town of Clayton are setting that example, that we could have met the requirement for the landscape and it been fine. But really, to create that hometown, this was our first park, to create a destination for people to come to. It needs to be clean, it needs to be beautiful. And I'm glad to see that we're taking on the responsibility of bringing that essence of quality of life to that space. Awesome work. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, sir. I will say one more thing. To Bobby's point, it hasn't had a facelift since the 70s, and we're just doing something about it in, 2021. So, this is the heart of Clayton. Parks and Rec are for our kids. It's for people to come out and, chill and just kind of relax. And so, like I said, thank you so much for all of your hard work. Thank you for all the hard work you did pertaining to the parks bond. I think a lot of citizens, even with the alternates that are coming in now, they see it as optimizing the bond money that you guys are working so hard on. So thank you so much.
Anyone else, Mr. Grant?
Just one last thing. I want to thank the citizens of Clayton, because their participation in this, they were very proactive. And for us to listen and incorporate a lot of the amenities that we have in this park, I'm really excited about, because it's a clear indication that we do listen. And I'm excited about that they actually got to participate and see what's coming. So thank you to the citizens as well.
Absolutely. All right, call the question. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And I do want to say that it probably should go without saying, but let's just make sure we're clear, that we are dealing with a neighborhood of people who have been good neighbors to us ever since we've been over there in 1970. So let's make sure our communication stays good with all of our neighbors in that region as we construct and remodel and rebrand that entire park and that entire region of Clayton.
We've knocked every door, shaken most hands, assured a lot of people, and we've heard a lot of phenomenal feedback. Not a single negative word from a neighbor.
Awesome.
It's been great thus far. Now, we haven't made a lot of dust yet, but we have some huge fans over there who are excited to be living across the street from our crown jewel.
Yes.
They're very excited about what's coming.
Thank you. All right. Is there any, Mr. Beard, go ahead.
I was going to say, I believe there was listed a second action. I looked at, town attorney, but I believe with the request from staff would be to table that until the December 6th meeting when we bring a contract before you for East Clayton Community Park. I believe that was on the agenda. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a motion to table that until December 6th.
That's fine. And there's no action item on here, is there? Oh, I see. Okay. It's coming back on the 6th.
So do we need,
A motion to table it till December 6th.
okay, I need a motion to table the award of the contract until December 6th.
So moved.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Yes. All right. Anything else to come before this town before we adjourn? All right, thank you again, everybody, for being in attendance today, and have a great evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move with adjourn. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.